Uruguay voting in Sunday's presidential runoff election continues normally. Moments before voting began, both campaign commands denounced irregularities in the ballot sheets. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, ensured on Saturday the country will be at peace not only at the swearing-in ceremony on January 10, 2025, but also during his whole term, 2025-2031. The Vice President of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, assured on Saturday that his country does not receive military equipment from other nations. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Uruguay, voting in Sunday's presidential runoff election continues normally. Over 7,200 polling stations open at 8 a.m. local time and will remain open until 7:30 p.m. local time. 2 hours after polls close, pollsters are expected to deliver their first projections. More than 2.7 million Uruguayans eligible to vote will choose between ruling party candidate Álvaro Delgado and that of the opposition broad front Yamandu Orsi, established in the national constitution. Voting is mandatory and those failing to participate are subjected to fines. The winning candidate will only need a simple majority to become the new president of the country.
I hope everything goes well. Whatever the result, may it be the best choice for the country. May we continue to move forward. May we continue to grow, especially our youth. I also hope that the country can continue to grow and that it does not stagnate.
I only ask the government for safety, to be able to go out in the street with peace of mind, as an old person, as a young person, as a child.
And a few hours before the beginning of the presidential election process in Uruguay, both campaign commands denounced irregularities in the ballots. The president of the Electoral Court, Wilfredo Penco, confirmed on Saturday that complaints have been received throughout the week. The National Party has reported sheets with errors in the date, while the broad front pointed out printing defects and differences in the thickness of the paper. The president of the electoral body informed that these complaints were communicated to the electoral boards, assuring that for the moment this is all they can do. He highlighted that in case of any irregularity, there are legal guarantees to address them and protect the right to vote. Let's take a look at the context in which this election day takes place in Uruguay.
This Sunday, November 24th, some 2.7 million Uruguayans are called to the polls to elect the next president and vice president for the 2025 to 2030 term. According to the National Electoral Council, polling stations open from 8 a.m. local time, and the day is expected to end at 7:30 p.m. local time. The first preliminary results are expected to be ready around 9:30 p.m. local time. On this second day of elections, voting will be mandatory for those who are registered with the National Electoral Council. Voting will be on a first-come, first-served basis in the electoral circuits, which will operate with voting commissions, made up of 3 members. Let us remember that in the general elections, the Broad Front was the most voted with 43.9% of the votes, while the Republican coalition obtained 26.7%. In this sense, at the legislative level, the Broad Front achieved a majority in the Senate, consolidating its presence in the Congress, although the Chamber of Deputies remained without a majority for either of the 2 blocs. This electoral process faces the challenge of retaining the scattered votes from the first round and mobilizing its political machinery, which includes subnational governments in 15 of the 19 departments of the country. It is also taking place in the midst of high levels of insecurity, drug trafficking, unemployment and poverty, central issues for the next presidential administration.
Now let's meet the candidate for the presidency for the Broad Front Party, Yamandu Orsi. Since his youth, Yamandu Orsi has been part of the Broad Front. He was elected mayor for 2 consecutive terms in the Department of Canelones, the second most populated in Uruguay, retiring with 64% of citizens' approval. The leftist candidate in the first round obtained 43.9% of the votes, recovering his presence in Congress. In this sense, Orsi, together with his government, pledged to boost the country's economy, provide quality education, and prioritize labor, housing, and health policy with an emphasis on social justice. Let's meet the candidate for the National Party, Álvaro Delgado. Delgado is a former secretary of the presidency of the current government of Luis Lacalle Pou. The candidate assured that his objective is to conquer the electorate to ensure the continuity of the current government project, which is characterized by a neoliberal approach. However, Delgado in the electoral round obtained 26.7%, although the Chamber of Deputies was left without a majority of any bloc. Delgado in this second round will have the support of other parties, although he has generated controversy within his own party. Let's now take a short break, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, ensured on Saturday that the country will be at peace, not only at his swearing-in ceremony on January 10, 2025, but also during his whole term, 2025-2031. In front of the feverish youth gathered at the Anti-Fascist World Congress in Caracas, the head of state appreciated their support and commitment with the Bolivarian Revolution. Maduro further promised a peaceful swearing-in ceremony at La Carlota Convention Center. In addition, the president praised one of the agreements reached by the Anti-Fascist Youth and Student World Congress, which was to celebrate in January 2025 the World Anti-Fascist Festival in Caracas. And in El Salvador, the second White March took place. Demonstrators took to the streets to protest against the cutbacks measures of Nayib Bukele's government. Roberto Hugo Presa with all the details.
Popular discontent was felt in the streets of San Salvador. Social organizations participated in the second White March, in which, once again, they asked the government to reconsider the budget cuts for the areas of health and education next year, so as not to affect the poorest families.
We are here to demand a fair budget that really covers the needs of the Salvadoran people. It is not possible that Bukele's government is taking away the budget for health and education to strengthen the armed forces and to strengthen its propaganda program, to make the Salvadoran people and internationally believe that here we live in a wonderland.
We are in solidarity with the struggle of the teachers and the health of the country. Doctors, health workers demand and need our support, and as citizens we are users of health and education services, and that is why we fight together with them.
Teachers, doctors, trade unionists, unemployed, environmentalists, vendors, relatives of detainees during the emergency regime, and relatives of political prisoners joined the march to present their demands.
We must also be in solidarity with other sectors that are joining us, but we also need to make visible the violation of human rights, and this is the only space we have left, the streets. That is why we are here today, because the arrests continue. The regime of exception continues to violate rights and the errors are not corrected.
We are here demanding the freedom of our fellow veterans captured during all this time. 25 political prisoners who are now in El Salvador, and dozens of people persecuted for political reasons, also because of the Bukele regime.
Social leaders lament the threats, pressures, and dismissals against people who take to the streets to express their discontent against the government. However, they affirm that little by little, they are losing their fear.
The president of Argentina also made that statement that freedom of expression was respected here, but we see that it is not true, because all these colleagues and fellow health workers who were present at the march on the 19th were dismissed in due process.
Union leaders denounced that once again the police set up roadblocks on the highways to hinder the arrival of citizens from the interior of the country on their way to the White March.
Roberto Hugo Presa, TeleSUR, El Salvador.
During a meeting with leaders of the communes, Peruvian President Dina Boluarte outraged the people again when referring to the domestic budget management. In the meeting, the president ignored the increase of the cost of the basic food basket and left in the hands of creativity the acquisition of its products. The president also ignored the increase of poverty in the country during her government. According to a report published by the National Institute of Statistics and Information, the cost of the basic family basket has increased by up to 57% during Boluarte's last 2 years in office. And this Sunday, China's Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi reported that President Xi Jinping's tour resulted in more than 60 cooperation agreements with Latin America. Beijing described the tour as a trip of solidarity to jointly promote development and a trip of cooperation to expand partnership. In the 11 days of President Xi's tour, he held more than 10 bilateral meetings outside the multilateral spaces. In each event, the head of state ratified the importance of firmly maintaining the defense of multilateralism. The head of Chinese diplomacy assured that the tour was an invitation to grow together with a peaceful development and a cooperation of mutual benefit and common prosperity. In the Philippines, a fire that lasted for several hours burned down at least 1,000 homes in a popular community in Manila. Local authorities report that so far no fatalities have been recorded. They also said that in the risk area there were about 2,000 homes, where half of them were affected. Emergency teams deployed around 36 trucks and 4 firefighting boats, while the Army sent 2 helicopters to extinguish the fire. And the UK Weather Forecast Entity issued over 250 flood warnings following heavy rainfalls and from Storm Bert. Weather authorities warned that the storm will pose dangerous coastal conditions as well as disruption in southern England and Wales overnight on Sunday. Furthermore, authorities issue a yellow warning for gusts which could affect land, air, and boat transport in Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, and southeastern England. So far, the aftermath of Storm Bert claimed about 3 lives. We have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Sunday, the spokesman for Russia's presidential office, Dmitry Peskov, confirmed the reasons why President Vladimir Putin ratified the update of the nuclear doctrine. Peskov added that the move was a response to U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to authorize Ukraine to use long-range missiles against the internationally recognized Russian territory, just a few days before leaving office. The presidential spokesman assured that the United States is increasingly taking reckless steps and pointed out that none of the decisions taken by Moscow are casual. Peskov assured that Russia is constantly responding to the unprecedented escalation triggered mainly by Washington. And the vice president of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, assured on Saturday that his country does not receive military equipment from other nations. The senior official made the statement during an interview to an Arab media when asked about the contribution of Iran, China, North Korea, and other countries. Medvedev assured that with these countries and many other nations there is good cooperation, but weapons are all manufactured on Russian territory. He also explained that the country is in a state of hybrid warfare with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The Israeli Prime Minister's office announced on Sunday that Emirati security forces found the 28-year-old Israeli Moldovan rabbi Zvi Kogan's corpse, who had gone missing since November 20th in the United Arab Emirates. The PMO promised to bring the accountable for his death to justice and issue warnings against all not-needed trips to that nation. The Jewish community mourns the Orthodox rabbi's loss, as he was a leader of the Hasidic Shabbat movement in Dubai. In a diplomatic response, the Emirati Interior Ministry reported to open a file to find the guilty for his killing. Moreover, outlets advanced that suspects are allegedly members of the Uzbek cell operating on behalf of Iran, which hasn't commented on the allegations so far. Meanwhile, Netanyahu offers statements.
The State of Israel will use all means, and will deal with these murderers, and those who dispatched them, to the fullest extent of the law. None of them will get away. I greatly appreciate the cooperation with the United Arab Emirates in investigating the murder.
And a gunman was dead and 3 police officers were wounded early Sunday after a shooting near the Israeli embassy in Jordan's capital, Amman. Jordan's public security directorate said in a statement that police pursued the gunman after he opened fire in the area surrounding him and was killed in a fire exchange with the authorities. Jordan's government communications minister Mohamed Momani described the shooting as a terrorist attack that targeted public security forces in the country. Authorities have not identified the shooter or say what his motive was, and said that investigations into the attack were underway. Hamas armed wing spokesman Abu Obaida reported the death Saturday of an Israeli female hostage after a new Zionist attack in northern Gaza. Obaida's statement did not provide further details about the woman's identity or how and when she was killed. Hamas spokesperson pointed out that there was a danger to the life of another female captive, holding Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leaders of his army fully responsible for the lives of the Israeli captives. The Israeli army said in a statement it could not confirm or refute Hamas' claim and was investigating the case. Hamas has offered the release of all hostages in exchange for stopping the bombing in Gaza and the withdrawal of the Israeli troops. However, Tel Aviv has repeatedly sabotaged the ceasefire talks. At this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.